Oh, this one's going to linger. Get comfortable. Let the cold fade away. Slow down. Breathe it in. And when you're ready, baby, dream of a new life.
Cabin Life, Borrowed Heat by Catherine Serafina. Chapter 9, Names for the Weather. Part 1. They still hadn't come back by morning. Will and I sat at the table with bowls cooling between us, neither of us eating much. He'd tried to be reassuring in the quiet, fumbling his way through it with the earnestness of someone who didn't quite know what words were supposed to fix. "They've done stuff like this before," he said, for maybe the third time. "My dad, he says if they say they're coming back, they will." "I know," I said. "They're just bad at being on time." That earned a small smile from him. I was halfway through saying something else when I heard it. Voices outside, boots on snow, not close enough yet to make out words, but familiar enough that my chair scraped back before I realized I'd stood up. I didn't think. I just moved. Cold air hit me like a slap as I pulled the door open and ran out onto the porch. Kyle was there, already turned away from the cabin, pack settled on his shoulders like he was about to head straight back into the trees. Shane and Davis stood a few steps behind him, saying something I didn't catch. "Kyle," I yelled, the word tearing out of me. "Wait!" All three of them turned at once. Kyle blinked. "Lainey?" Before he could say anything else, I pointed back toward the door. "Will's here. He's been waiting for you?" Kyle's face changed instantly. Surprise cracking into something softer, sharper. He didn't even answer, just turned and started back toward the porch, calling his son's name as he went. Davis reached me first. I barely slowed long enough to throw my arms around him, a quick, fierce hug that knocked the breath out of both of us. Then Shane was there. I wrapped myself around him without hesitation, my face pressing into his jacket, the cold forgotten all at once. He laughed softly in surprise and kissed me. Quick, instinctive, before I could even think about who might be watching. "I'm freezing," I said breathlessly, already pulling back. "Get inside, all of you." Kyle and Will met just inside the doorway. A half-second of stunned stillness before Will was swallowed into his dad's arms. I caught a glimpse of it as I stepped aside, the relief on both of their faces so obvious it made my chest ache. Everyone was still shrugging off cold when it happened. I turned back to Shane and slapped him. The sound cracked through the room, sharp and unmistakable. Conversation died instantly. Shane blinked. Kyle froze mid-motion. Will's eyes went wide. Davis stared. "What the fuck, Lainey?" "You said a day," I snapped, the words tumbling over each other before I could stop them. "Maybe two? That's what you said. And then another whole day went by and I didn't know if you were dead or frozen somewhere or..." My voice broke hard enough that it shocked me into silence. "I didn't know," I said again uselessly. "I didn't know." Davis lifted his hands, instinctively trying to smooth it over. "Lainey, if you'd seen what we saw..." "Stop," Shane said quietly. He stepped forward and pulled me into his chest before I could protest. I pushed at him once, weak and angry, then sagged against him, my forehead pressing into his shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said into my hair. "We tried to get back sooner. I swear we did." My fingers curled into his jacket, tight. Davis shifted, suddenly very aware of his audience. "You're kind of a badass. We knew you could handle things here." I let out a broken laugh. "That's not the point." "I know," Shane said. "I know." He held me until my breathing slowed, until the tightness in my chest eased enough that I could think again. When I finally pulled back, the first thing I noticed was how far I'd had to tilt my head to look up at him. My forehead had been pressed against his chest, and it hadn't used to land there. Both of them were looking at me differently now. Not just relief, assessment. Davis leaned in slightly towards Shane, voice pitched low. "Is it just me? Or..." Shane glanced down at me again, his hand briefly settling at my waist like he was confirming it for himself. then shook his head once. Later. Kyle cleared his throat gently, the moment passing. Lainey, he said, offering a small, warm smile. You look even prettier than I remembered. The word caught me off guard. I thanked him automatically, and the sound of my own voice surprised me, lighter than I expected, higher, like it had found a new place to settle without asking. But it wasn't the voice that lingered. Prettier meant something had changed. Not clothes, not posture, face. I filed that away, a quiet note to myself, and gestured toward the table before I could overthink it. Come on, I said quickly, gesturing toward the table. Breakfast is already out. No one argued. We moved inside together, the cabin filling again with voices and warmth, and the quiet understanding that the hardest part of the waiting was finally over. We ate together. All 5 of us crowded around the table like the world hadn't narrowed to this cabin and these moments. Soup warmed back to life on the stove, bread passed hand to hand, steam curling into the cold air. I kept glancing at them. Shane, Davis, Kyle. Like, if I looked away too long, they might vanish again. Shane leaned back first, stretching carefully, wincing just a little before hiding it. All right, he said. You want the long version or the short one? Short, Kyle said immediately, dry. Because if you start rambling, my wife's gonna assume I died out there and come looking up for my body. Will snored into his soup. I swallowed. Start with why you were gone an extra day. For a split second, all 3 of them looked at each other, and then Shane smiled. Not tired, not guarded. Excited. It's different, he said. What we found. Davis leaned back in his chair, energy creeping into his voice. Yeah, way different. It's not just a stop, it's more like a village, Kyle finished. Or what passes for one now? That caught my attention. Small, Shane added quickly. Really small. But compared to anything else we've seen since all this started, it's a lot. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. It's built around a handful of old buildings. A couple shops that used to be something else. Hardware, maybe, a dry cleaner. Repurposed into trading spaces. People actually stay there, not just pass through. And people talk, Davis said. Like actually talk, not just quick exchanges and moving on. They want news, stories, anything that isn't their own 4 walls. Kyle nodded. Most folks were friendly, cautious, sure, but curious. You could tell they'd been starved for new faces. There's food too, Shane said. Not a restaurant, more like one setup. Someone cooking whatever they have that day. You trade for a bowl, you sit, you eat, no menu, just this is what's hot. Different kind of cooking, Davis added quickly, glancing at me. Not better, just different. Stuff we haven't tasted in a while. That part stood out, he said. More variety than we're used to. And there's lodging, Kyle added. Sort of. One building set up like an old motel. Bunks mostly, it's for anyone who needs a roof, but blankets are scarce. You're expected to have your own gear or trade for it. Davis nodded. Which you can actually. There are traders around the edges. Some new, some familiar. Same folks we've seen at the smaller outposts, just anchored in one place now. It felt permanent, Shane said, or at least like it wants to be. He hesitated, just slightly, and that was when Davis opened his mouth again. And we saw some weird... Kyle chuckled. Yeah, some of that was kind of crazy, honestly. Maybe that's a story for later. Shane cut in smoothly. The table went quiet. Kyle blinked, then glanced at Will, then back at Shane, understanding landing a half-second later. He nodded easily. Yeah, fair enough? He shifted his weight, then looked at me. Before we go, thank you for watching over Will. I know that's a lot to put on someone. I shook my head. It really wasn't. He was great company. We mostly just looked out for each other. Will ducked his head, a little embarrassed. Kyle smiled at that, clearly relieved. Still, I appreciate it. He pushed his chair back with a sigh and stood. Speaking of later, we should probably get moving. Will looked up at him, surprised. Already? Kyle smiled. Your mom's been worried sick, and if I don't get home soon, I'm pretty sure I'm due for my own personal slap. That earned a snort from Davis. I laughed despite myself. Kyle grabbed his pack, ruffled Will's hair as he passed, and glanced back at me. Thank you, he said simply. For everything. I nodded. Anytime. They headed for the door together. Father and son. The cold waiting just beyond it. And only once it closed behind them did the room feel like it shifted again. I stood first. Give me a minute, I said, already halfway down the hall. I just need to check something. Neither of them stopped me. Behind me, I heard chairs scrape back, the soft clatter of dishes being gathered, normal sounds, grounding ones. I closed my bedroom door and went straight to the mirror. The woman looking back at me made my breath hitch, not because she was unfamiliar, not anymore, but because she was finished in ways I hadn't expected yet. My face had softened further, the angles that used to define my jaw were gone, replaced with gentle curves that made my features look intentional. My cheeks were fuller, my mouth slightly wider, lips plush in a way that made me look perpetually on the edge of smiling. My eyes looked larger somehow, framed by lashes I didn't remember earning. Cute wasn't the right word. Pretty was closer. Then my hair caught the light. I leaned closer. Blonde. Not the muddy in-between shade it had been for weeks, but real blonde now. Warm even. The color settled like it had finally decided where it belonged. It fell thickly over my shoulders, stopping right at my shoulder blades, heavy and healthy and done. I lifted a section, let it slide through my fingers. No more growth. No more weird spurts. Just finished. And then there was my skin. I hadn't expected that. I pressed my fingertips to my cheek and stilled. Soft, yes. But more than that, lighter, fairer. My freckles stood out more now against a pale porcelain smoothness that hadn't been there before. Even my hands looked different, veins faint beneath skin that almost seemed to glow in the morning light. I didn't linger, didn't spiral. I took a breath, squared my shoulders, and went back out. Shane and Davis were at the sink, finishing up. Davis dried while Shane stacked. Domestic, comfortable. I leaned against the counter. Okay, you can keep going now. Both of them looked up at the same time. Shane's mouth curved first. Kyle wasn't wrong. I raised a brow. About. You, Davis said easily, you look brighter. Not new, just more you. Shane nodded. You were already pretty. This is just refinement. Heat crept up my neck despite myself. I just noticed my hair and skin. Yeah, Davis said. That tracks. I folded my arms, steadying myself. Speaking of changes, that did it. The air shifted. They moved back to the table with me, slower now. There weren't many people, Davis said once we sat, but enough that things didn't feel random anymore. What do you mean? I asked. Shane leaned forward. We've heard rumors before, at the small outposts. You know how it is. Half stories, half bullshit. Someone's cousin changes. Someone blames radiation or bad water. We didn't put much stock in it, Davis added. Too many people desperate for explanations. But this place, Shane continued, they weren't guessing. They were watching. My fingers curled against the table. Watching what? Changes, he said simply. Davis took over then. A guy there grew almost 4 inches over a few weeks. Boots stopped fitting. His wife kept staring at him like she was trying to recognize someone she knew. And a woman whose hair went white in under a month, Shane added. Voice dropped so much people kept mistaking her for her brother. Some people laughed it off, Davis said. Called it adaptation, evolution, made jokes. And some didn't, Shane said quietly. Davis swallowed. There was a kid with a tail, prehensile, worked and everything. His parents wouldn't touch him. And a woman whose skin thickened in patches, Shane said, protective. She said she felt fine. Her partner couldn't stand to be near her. My chest felt tight. And sex-based changes? They both nodded. Men becoming women, Shane said. Women becoming men. Slow, uneven, not all ending the same way. No cure, Davis said. No pattern anyone's cracked. And even if there was one, there's no one left to chase it. The silence sat heavy. So, I said finally, this didn't start with you. Shane's jaw tightened. No. And I hate that you even thought that. I didn't. You were scared, he said. We get it. We weren't steering you, Davis added. We were following you. Something loosened in my chest. Then Davis hesitated. There was someone else, he said. There. Shane glanced sideways. Here we go. Davis shot him a look. Michelle. I tilted my head. Who's Michelle?
Thank you for watching. I'm not waiting for permission anymore.
Still lost in the dream, aren't you? Don't worry. I've got plenty more where that came from. Sweet, sexy, transformative little dreams. All just a click away. And if you're craving the naughty versions, the ones too hot for YouTube, you know exactly where to find them. On my Patreon. I'll be waiting, gorgeous.